So my name is Matt Mildorf, Marine Corps veteran, born and raised in West Orange, New Jersey. Joined the Corps in 2004, and I served until 2014 when I decided it was time to go do something else.
Later.
Decided it was time to do something else. I like that. That's the polite way of saying it was time to get the fuck out.
Okay. Yeah, pretty much.
All right. So let's start early, man. Tell me a little bit about what made you join.
So being in the suburbs of New Jersey, on the outskirts of New York City, freshman year, 9/11 happened, and from where I lived at in Jersey, I could actually see the smoke of the towers.
So
I remember
whenever I talk to somebody that was actually there that could see it, I really ask you to try to unpack that for us because I know how much that must have hit for you. So I won't interrupt. Go for it.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm freshman year in high school and in class, and they start talking about these planes hitting the towers. And you're like, planes hitting the towers. That's not normal. And then I remember, classmates that I was, going to school with being pulled out of class because their family, members worked at the World Trade Center in New York City, and they're like trying to figure out, are they okay? Are they still in the building? What's going on? And then obviously we know that wasn't no plane accident, right? Terrorist attack. So I think, growing up in Jersey and seeing that was really my catalyst for wanting to join the Marine Corps. I was pissed off like a lot of other Americans, and I wanted to go back and, kind of get back to the bastards for what they did.
Absolutely.
So pretty much my goal from there on out was to join the military, right? So all throughout high school, I was an okay student, and my parents had these big hopes that I'd like apply for like the Naval Academy or ROTC or some shit like that, and bribe me with buying me a car and all this other stuff. And like I found out, if I had gone to the Naval Academy, like, hey, you're not even guaranteed a spot in the Marine Corps. So I think from that point forward, I was like, yeah, I'm just going to enlist. I can go do the college thing while I'm in, and I'll still get my degree while I'm in, and I can go officer after I'm already enlisted, and blah blah blah. They'll respect me more. Right? They'll respect me more if I was enlisted first, right? Yeah. So went straight in after high school. I literally graduated, I think, and a week later I was in boot camp.
Same here.
In the summer, June of 2004.
Same here. But I was 08.
Yeah, so we know all the fun stuff about being in Paris Island in the summer months. I think most of that time is really a blur now. I don't remember anything fun about that, obviously.
So we always ask for one story, bro. There's got to be one that's burnt into your brain.
I got a good one. I got a good one. So I was on late night, and that's when everyone either goes to piss or shit because you can actually do that in peace, right? And I'm walking around in my PT gear, and it's dark as shit. And I walk up to another person who I think is a recruit. I'm like, some hell of a day, huh, man? And all I hear is, good bitch. Give me your fucking name.
Good.
Yeah. So come to find out, I'm talking to the Greenbelt DI.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, perfect. So I'm on the shit list from that point forward, right? I made it to being a fly on the wall the entire time through boot camp, and then yeah, not a fly on the wall anymore.
Oh man.
I got one more good one though, right? So when you're on the range, that's the hey, don't fuck with you time, right? They say, hey, they're not gonna fuck with you. They'll leave you alone so you can focus on shooting. And while we're shooting, dude, the science behind using the sights, and this is before the time where they started issuing ACOGs in boot camp, right? So this is all iron sights,
of course,
and making your adjustments and windage and Kentucky windage.
I was there with you.
Freaking the drill instructors. Oh, we're gonna go easy on you. We just want you to pass. Don't worry about it. Just if anything happens, we'll take care of it. Blah blah blah. And I remember unking on the rifle range, and the first thing Good bitches, get in the fucking pit.
Fucking honk.
Exactly. All y'all go over this
Mhm.
to this corner. I'm
Yeah.
gonna go take care of you,
Yeah.
right? Fucking embarrass me, right?
Is
That's what the story was, right?
that's kind of crazy. That's kind of came full circle for you though. Now look at you now,
Yeah. Who's laughing now, motherfucker?
right? Okay,
um.
so we get through boot camp, and where's the first stop for you?
So MCT. Everyone knows about Marine Combat Training. That's kind of like a bump in the road. Nobody really talks about. I remember is going in the field for like a month straight, basically.
Yep.
And when I enlisted, I really wanted to be a grunt. I thought being a grunt was the best thing ever. And then the next best thing for me was like, well, I wanted to be a cop when I got out, so let me be an MP. Well, I scored really high on my ASVAB, and I was 17 when I enlisted. So when I did my contract, the recruiter gives me this list of jobs and says, "Hey, you can pick whatever field on this list, and all the fields are on there, and the one field that has a black marker line through it, guess what that is? MP.
MP.
Because you have to be 19 to be an MP in the Marine
Oh,
Corps.
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yep.
Oh, really?
So they sell me on, hey man, like get you this $6,000 bonus if you sign up for this fire direction control thing. Like I'm like, fire direction. I'm like, what the fuck is that? Like sounds like I'm like fireman. I'm like putting out fires. No, you're doing some artillery stuff. You're gonna blow shit up. I'm like, oh, awesome. Um, so I go to my MOS school out in Fort Sill, Oklahoma, where they train all artillerymen. And come to find out that fire direction control is a shitload of math
Oh
and a
no.
lot of stuff that I absolutely hated and wanted to avoid doing,
Could you
You're
after
like,
high school.
could
what
you
do I
break
do here?
could you break that down for me? Because I really never even heard of that before.
So fire direction control. So when artillery units are getting their calls for fire, we're saying, hey, we need this round on this target at this grid. The cannons are all based off of like deflections and angles and all this stuff. So basically, you got to look in these manuals and use these rulers and this thing we call a Klingon battle axe on a map and figure out like the trigonometry behind getting the rounds to go up and then come down where you want them to fall, right? Um, so I'm already like, what the fuck? Like, why did I do this? This is like the absolute worst job for me. I mean, like manuals like this thick.
Oh
Like when you're
no.
falling asleep in class, like the instructors are tossing manuals
Oh,
at you.
no good.
And this is on an army base, nonetheless. So when you're a Marine on an army base, the standards. When you're in the Marine standards are the Marine standards, but when you're on an army base, they're
Way up.
multiplied times 10.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
you motherfuckers better not embarrass us.
You
Like, you're
better
the
not be the
Marines.
one. Don't
Yeah.
be the one.
Yep,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yep.
So go to Fort Sill for that training, graduate, go to the fleet. My first Navy station is Camp Lejeune,
Oh,
North
perfect.
Carolina, where I go to 10th Marine Regiment, and they put me in a unit that was survey met. So survey and meteorological data for artillery rounds. So guess what? Weather also plays an important role in how do artillery rounds, fire and land
Makes
and
sense.
fly.
No
Yeah,
shit.
we don't want to be skipping rounds across N Street in Camp Lejeune.
Right.
So I go to this unit and I'm there for a little bit and they're like, oh, well, you need to go back to Fort Sill. So I go back to Fort Sill again for another like month and a half, 2 months for survey training. This is again way outside my scope of what I thought I'm doing here.
Yeah.
And again, the same exact shit. The survey, when you think about what you see the guys on the side of the road with the pole, the candy cane poles and their theodolites and everything, same exact thing for artillery. So in order for these big ass howitzers, the cannons to know where they're actually at and make sure that they're all facing in the right direction, we would put in survey control points, for these artillery units so that they can say, hey, when we're dropping this cannon at this point, we know exactly where the cannon is at.
Gotcha. So
this is
2005, 2006 range.
Yeah, so 2005, I'm going through all this training, and then 2006, they are putting together a unit to deploy to Iraq. So spreading this unit across multiple bases in Iraq. So I was part of a unit called Target Acquisition Platoon. So Target Acquisition Platoon was essentially artillery Q-46 and Q-47 radars. So big
Okay.
ass radars that would track incoming artillery rounds and give us grids to be able to fire back on these guys
Really?
that are shooting, rockets and things at
High
us.
speed. Okay.
Again, I'm like,
Yes.
awesome. So again, I go and I learn something else, right? So I've been in the Marine Corps now for less than 2 years, and I'm learning to do a completely separate job from the first two jobs that they gave me, and now I am learning how to be a hostile artillery locator operator. So essentially a microphone, acoustical microphone that picks up artillery shells like this incoming artillery. This system we bought from the British to
Really?
track on bad guys, track on insurgents when they're firing rockets and mortars and all this kind of shit,
I mean,
and pick up sound waves.
so essentially you got to be in somewhat of the kill zone to pick that up, do you not? Or at least being somewhat fired upon?
You're, I mean, I was located on Camp Ramadi, and we were providing all these grids for Ramadi, Corregidor, the government center all throughout Ramadi, which is, I mean, in 2006, Ramadi is literally the worst place in Iraq.
Did you see that last
Yeah.
post that I did
Yeah.
about the kid that was in Ramadi?
I didn't
Sergeant
see it.
Pruitt? No.
I didn't see it fully, but I know exactly. I know the area. We were there supporting 3-8 when we were over there. So long story short, this system was on the base in Ramadi on the main camp, and the sergeant major from 3-8 literally comes over to our camp one day, and he's like, "These insurgent fuckers are shooting rockets and shit at us, and they're too close for us to triangulate. So we need something that can give us a grid so we can shoot back on these fuckers." And of course, okay. So let me set the picture here. In Ramadi, we were co-located from the rest of our unit, so we didn't have any staff NCOs, sergeants. The highest ranking person on a 4-member team that I was on was a corporal. On Camp Ramadi, that was assisting the Army, right? Assisting the Army in their COC, but nobody in the Marine Corps chain of command other than a corporal was essentially on that base telling us, hey, right, wrong, or maybe we shouldn't do that. So Sergeant Major comes over and says, I need this. And first thing, my team leader, Corporal, Roger that, where do you want it? And the Sergeant Major's like, well, can we put it right on the roof of the government center? So great idea, right? So we're trying to extend the range of this thing. It operates off a Singar's system, whip antenna, radio. And literally, I had never left the base prior to this day that we're installing this system. I was on Camp Ramadi, relatively safe other than all the IDF and all the indirect fire attacks and RPGs and mortar rounds that would strike off in the distance, but you kind of laugh or step off on the berm and kind of like, oh, where did that land, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that was loud.
Yeah. Oh, that was pretty fucking close, right? So we're putting this system on the roof of the government center, and we're installing this thing. It's got this big ass whip antenna, like 100-pound battery pack that needs to be charged every couple hours. And I could just already tell, like, man, the grunts are going to hate us for this shit because the battery chargers are on the first floor, and they've got to lug this freaking battery up to the roof to change it, and the battery only lasts like 8 hours. So I'm like,
perfect.
They're really going to love us for this. Yeah.
You can be on the shit list, #1.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. So first time I'm leaving the base, we're installing this system, and all day we're on the roof, and we don't have any freaking gear on. Like we're just up there, and the dude that's the dude that's leading us all over the roof. He's like the mortar dude. He's like, oh, no one's ever hit us over here, man. Like they can't hit shit on the roof. Like they've never shot us on the roof. Like don't worry about it up here. The guys in the observation posts on the roof, of course, all have their shit on because they're behind machine guns and all this stuff. But we're just a couple of artillery guys setting up some high speed radio acoustical
No
microphone
problem.
shit. So don't worry about it, man. You're good. So probably most of the day went on without any action, and then eventually the grunts are all like, getting geared up for this like firefight, and like, oh yeah, man, like we think this dude in his man dress has been carrying this, artillery shell across the alley all day long, right? And we think he's been transporting artillery shells back and forth all day. So like we're probably going to see some action, right? And I'm like, fuck yeah, like I'm all about this, right? This might be the only action I see the entire time I'm in Iraq. So I distinctly remember being up there all freaking day, like looking.
Oh yeah.
Now this is back in the day when we didn't even have ACOGs. So I had literally brought my own EOTech
No way.
that I sighted in and zeroed on the base, and I'm like, I'm gonna use this EOTech. I'm gonna engage the enemy. I'm just gonna be badass, right? So I'm up there all day, and like probably 10 or 15 minutes before we're supposed to roll out, they're like, hey man, the convoy's gonna be rolling out to go back to the main base. So like, get your shit on. You can stay up here until we call you on the radio. Then you got to come down and roll because that's when the convoy's leaving. So I mean, probably 5 minutes after I put all my gear back on, they start shooting RPGs and mortars at the building, and you can hear that. You hear that thunk of the mortar round, and like immediately get your ass in the post. So I dive into the post where the machine gunner is with the 50 cal, sandbags and all that other shit. And right where I was standing, I want to say it was an RPG landed literally exactly where I was standing.
Damn.
Like 2 seconds before that.
Lucky duck.
This dude on the 50, he just starts lighting up that entire alleyway. I mean, and on the 50, it's a butterfly trigger, so there's space on the middle shield for him to T and E. The gun move up and down, and then move the gun left and right.
Yep.
And they shoot an RPG directly at the shield on that post.
I've never seen that.
The RPG deflects off the shield and goes off up into the ceiling and explodes.
Damn.
So
did you catch some shrapnel?
I caught some shrapnel, right? And I'm pretty certain I was knocked unconscious for some period of time. I got rocked. I got my noggin rocked.
Of course.
And the first thing I remember is looking at the machine gunner, and his thumb is just like hanging off.
Yummy.
And he's bleeding, and he looks at me, and he's like, I think I'm hit. And I'm like, nah, bro, you're good. I'm like, grabbing my IFAK. Yeah, grabbing my IFAK. I'm like, start like putting a bandage on his hand. And my team leader was also in the same post. So like, he fucking jets. Like, we start getting rocked. He's like, I'm out of here. Like, I'm not waiting to get shot at again, by in the post. Like, they already know where we're at. So he runs downstairs. He had taken shrapnel, right? Like all over his body. I had a couple of, I got peppered, nothing crazy. And they get us off the roof and everything. And they bring us down, and they Kazaveck us all back to the, Camp Ramadi. The crazy shit is like, back in those days, I don't think TBI or anything was like a real concern. They're like, oh, you're awake, you're functional. Like, hey, take the rest of the day off and go back to work tomorrow.
Change your socks.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And
motion modern, change your socks.
I'm like engaged at the time. So like my buddy who works on the base with me is telling his wife, about this. And his wife calls my wife before I even get a chance to call her. He's like, did you hear what happened to Matt? He got hit with a rocket.
So she's bugging out.
She's bugging out, and we're all in the medical station getting checked out and everything. The chaplain comes with a cell phone, and he's like, hey, like, you want to call your loved ones and like let them know you're okay? I'm like, yeah, it's probably a good freaking idea.
Yep.
So my wife's all freaked out. But the funny thing is, like I said, RTD next day, return to duty. You're fine. Don't worry about it. Like, no brain scan, no like, hey, we're gonna check and make sure like your noggin's great. And I go through that entire deployment like continually, man. That we continue to do this thing with this system, and the batteries are dying, and then all of a sudden the system turns off. Then we find out the grunts actually clipped the wires on the system because they were sick of walking up and down the stairs. Like it was almost like one of those like, hey, when someone stabs your tire, like
Yeah.
get the hint, like we don't really want this fucking thing. Um, but yeah, that was really my entire deployment. Like we shot a lot of rounds back at the enemy. And that was when the bases out in the city like Corregidor. I mean, you'd see the incoming rounds, and it looked like if you were looking at a radar, you'd think it was like a flock of ducks or something. Because you
Yeah.
just see
I've
a
heard that
ton of
before.
artillery rounds,
Yep.
Yeah.
striking.
Give me a takeaway from that, man. I mean, I've heard the stories from Ramadi, man. I can. What do you think? Was it? Did you have the feeling that it was a better place when you left, or was it still extremely kinetic?
It was extremely kinetic, right? And I left in 2006,
Oh, you did.
and
So it was kind of
when
amping
I
up still.
and the funny thing is the army unit that I was there got um put on notice that they were being extended for like another tour. I think they were going to stay there for like 15 months straight. And when I left Ramadi in 2006, and when I went back in 2007, the same army cats were
No
still at
way.
Ramadi when I
No
came
way.
back, and holy shit, you remember me?
Damn.
I was like, I already went home and came back.
They must have been
Um,
salty.
dude, and I'll tell you the crazy part is after I had left in October, I had found out shortly after that a couple of the people that I had known in Ramadi and interacted with on a daily basis had died by an IED. Um,
R.I.P.
and
Yeah.
and,
Rest in
and
peace, brothers.
most notably, Major Megan McClellan, which is the highest ranking female Marine to be killed in combat in Iraq.
Gotcha.
She was public affairs out there, and she was she was going and interacting with she wanted to go where the action was, right? So, it's
Too bad.
we lost a lot of good people over there, man. And that Ramadi was crazy. I mean, I remember seeing the grunts come back from patrols, and we were out there doing stuff with the radar, and like just fucking amped up because they had lost people, to attacks and getting shot and stuff like that. And right, I think that's where the bad juju starts coming in, right? And what do we do as Marines when we start having those bad fucked up feelings in our head? We go back.
Amp back up and try to get you some. Yeah.
Yeah, man. So I mean, I'm sure you've probably had to do those post deployment assessments where you come back and have you been this? Are you this? Are you? No, I'm good. Everything's great.
That's such a weird thing, because if you answer honestly to half those things, dude, you're going to the fucking loony bin. So it's like, yeah, dude.
Um, and I think that was that's part of the problem is they don't really tell you how to realize, at least at that time when we were. I think all the PTSD and the TBI stuff was really just ramping up from the war. They didn't really understand how to tell folks like this is what maybe you might be experiencing.
Yep.
It was more like, if you say some shit, you ain't going back. Do you want to deploy or do you want to stay,
Exactly.
in the rear? And no one wants to be in garrison. I mean, what do we do in
no.
garrison? We field day, we clean, and we go to the field
And shave.
Yeah.
and shave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shave.
Shave.
Yeah.
And they fuck with what kind of boots you're wearing, right?
Yeah, fuck that. I hear you. So
Um,
okay, so we're back from Ramadi, and then you went what? Actually, I'm gonna slow down real quick. So where are you at now with that, man? Because PTSD is a big thing now. PTSD TBI is starting to get taken very seriously. And how are you dealing with it? How are you doing?
you know what, man? I like to think that I have more good days than bad days, but I think one of the hardest things when we leave the service is we lose that tribe. We lose those brothers and sisters that understand what we're going through.
Yes. Yes.
I can say this for sure, that being a police officer for 8 years did not help me positively in the right direction.
No, I
struggles.
talk to a lot of guys that go the police officer route after, and a lot of them say it wasn't the same. It wasn't, I mean, is it probably because it's more of a civilian job You think, and maybe people don't take it as seriously, or what's your take on that?
Um, Honestly, I think it's really has a lot to do with the direction that the country has gone in regards to how we look at our men and women that serve as first
Absolutely.
responders. You know, um, I think I think the majority of people that get into that career field want to do good things, and like anything, when there's a couple of bad incidents, it puts a really dark cloud over the rest of us that are trying to do
Puts a
good.
huge spotlight on it, and then all of a sudden everyone's a professional and everyone knows. I can't stand when people give their 2 cents when they don't have boots on ground in a situation. It's like you can never really, you never really know what's going on unless you're there, unless you see what's happening. It's real easy to judge from behind a keyboard until you're in a situation that's heating up right in front of you and developing right in front of you.
Yeah.
But I hear you
And I will be
completely.
the first one to tell you, I'm by no means not a, I'm not, a, I wasn't a street cop. I was a federal police officer, which is loosely to say I was pretty much an armed security guard with police credentials. Um, but that being said, uh, I can say that I think what a lot of people don't realize when they're going into any career field now when they get out of the military is what's good for money might not be good for the soul. And money's
Mm.
great, supporting your family is great, but if it's not good for your soul, eventually,
Catch up to
especially
you.
if you're struggling, with stuff, man, it's going to eventually come to the surface to where you have to make the decision: is your career worth your mental health? Is it worth your sanity? Is it worth these bad emotions and bad feelings, or is it better to be able to go somewhere where you can be your true authentic self?
So for me, honestly,
Yeah.
it took for me to get out of the military to kind of slow down that op tempo to really look at myself and figure out like, oh shit, some things aren't going right. It's time to address some things. Maybe check in. Have you now? Are you rated through the VA? Have you gone through the VA down where you're at, or how's that
Yeah,
going?
I'm service connected. I
Attaboy.
got my benefits. You know what I'm saying?
Attaboy.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and that that again is another whole really crappy part of the transition in itself is they
Yeah.
in the transition readiness they really pump you up and make you feel like, man, you're a Marine, you're going to be able to work anywhere. And then you get out and it's like, hey man, I'll offer you $12 an hour to go do this, go
Yeah,
do that. And I'm
exactly.
like, bro,
Not
gainful employment is not the same as
Yeah.
employment.
not only that,
Yeah. No,
all
brother.
these
It,
all
it,
these
it
employers say that they support the military and they support the veterans, but the second that you say you have to go to a psych appointment or you have this or that, it's like, oh, I don't know how much I support veterans anymore. But go ahead, Chris. Did you have something to say?
yeah. No, like, so, obviously I've dealt with that, Nick, and you know this. But so, dude, so I had TBI, and at the age of 29, I think, yeah, I was 29, I started having seizures. 36 now, but federally, like per the law, I have to disclose to employers that I have seizures. You know how many I've lost so many jobs because of that shit, dude, and it
Fuck
sucks.
that.
And
I
it's
wouldn't
like,
even
hey,
tell him,
man,
Chris.
you have to, man, legally, you have to tell them. They could turn around and sue my ass if I didn't.
I'll take the job.
Well, I'll tell you what, man, I really sympathize with you. I have a 14-year-old who literally just started having seizures earlier this year and got diagnosed with epilepsy. I mean, the first time it happened, like, scared the living shit out of me. As a father,
Yeah,
I thought he fell off the bed and broke his neck because
Oh
he never
shit.
had a seizure before. Um, and man, it's fucking scary, man.
Yeah, of course.
And
yeah, man, yeah, it is.
man, I feel you, brother. I feel you. You gotta figure out, okay, how do you not let this thing own your life, right? And that's what I try to tell
Mm-hmm.
try to really tell my wife is like, we got to figure,
That's all you
what is the
can do.
best route to go, you know. Um.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah,
for sure, man. And it's definitely one of those things you gotta figure it out. And luckily, I mean, let's knock on wood right now. I've pretty well got it under control for the most part, I think. So yeah, yeah, man. And me and you can talk offline if you want to, and I can tell you,
just
some things that would help. you know.
Just stay out of those EDM raves, right? You'll be all right if you stay away from those flashing lights.
Yeah, yeah. Just close your eyes.
Matt, did you catch the recent the Marine hearings recently for the Kuwait situation?
Yeah, man. I saw that testimony about the Abbey Gate, over in Afghanistan. That I mean, that just really
Pretty
it
powerful
really hit
stuff.
home.
Yeah.
When we did that whole withdrawal from Afghanistan again, I was also a Afghanistan veteran. I actually helped close down a base over there in 2013. Um, the way that we handled that was just I inexplicable. I mean, the only way in and out of the country, you'd think we would kind of make sure we keep that secure and open until everyone got out, right? Like, come on, man.
You would think, man.
So
Yeah, you would think.
what was it? Was it just rushed and just handled improperly with the leadership? I mean, were they just trying to just get the fuck out of there? Or I mean, how did it seem?
Honestly, it just to me it seems inexcusable. I don't think there was enough. I don't think there was enough leadership in that situation. I'm not a politician. I don't get involved in politics, but at the end of the day, we always have to take care of our people over processes. And if people are not getting the support and the safety that they should have when they're put in that situation, there was a failure somewhere.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
I really pray for those guys. I saw that dude's testimony, and it just rocked me. It really hit home.
Yeah, same here.
Got to live with that.
Yeah, yeah.
Not only that, I mean, a simple decision and a simple, you know, yes or no from the leadership could have saved what, 14 lives, 15 lives, however many it was. And
Yeah,
it's insane, man.
we tout on that line as Marines, right? Between you know when to follow orders and when orders don't make sense. And well, I can break an order and go go get NJP
Get the
or
wrath of
court
God put
martial,
on me. Yeah, exactly. I
or
mean,
I could die. I mean, the
they'll take the
choices are,
ladder.
are the choices are never easy in combat, and I think that's that's just kind of the nature of the beast. I mean, sometimes it's easier when you're the Marine with no direct leadership, and you're made to make those split decisions because at least you are making those decisions with the intelligence and the information that you have with your feet on the ground. And at the end of the day, if it's going to save somebody's life, I mean,
Yeah, you got to go
you
with it.
really gotta roll with what makes sense in that situation.
Not a fan?
um, no, no,
No.
not at all.
Be real.
Um, I think, yeah, when you've been to combat and then all of a sudden you're like hard stop, go recruit and go out in the public eye and find people to join the Corps. Uh, I will tell you from my experience, I had already been struggling being a larger gentleman with the Marine Corps weight standards, and we know how
Oh, I'm
that goes.
sure. Oh,
Um, and I remember being put on BCP
old
when I was
BCP.
dude. Before I deployed to Iraq the second time, they put me on BCP. I'm sorry, no, the first time they put me on BCP before I went to deploy to Iraq, and then they they put me on like hey, you're basically non-rec, right? No promotion. Well, the entire time I'm in Iraq, and I had to find some like master sergeant that worked for like combat camera or something to like do my height and weight. I'm like, dude,
Ugh.
like going to the gym, killing myself. I come back, I lost the weight. They got me off BCP, and then I deploy again in 2007, and I'm still fighting the standards. We don't PT was like when I was in Iraq in 2006, we were all over the country, so there was no gym time for me. It
No,
was
of
like
course.
go come to the base and go all over the place. So um, I get back from Iraq the second time in 2007 and get hit on the recruiting hit list, and I'm like,
No, you're a
oh my!
sergeant you're a sergeant at this time?
I was a yeah, I was a sergeant at the time.
Gotcha.
So I'm on the hit list, and
Where'd they send
I
you?
remember So I got the recruiting school, and they sent me to New Jersey.
Oh, no shit.
I asked for every state other than New Jersey, and where do I end up going? Freaking New Jersey.
So typical.
Fucking back home. Back home.
And a
So
matter of fact, I moved into the house that I lived in as a kid.
no shit.
No shit.
So
My
so you're married
yeah.
with 2 kids?
So I'm married at the time. I have a child that was just born, so a newborn. And we're in Jersey. My wife is trying to go to school for nursing, and at that time, our hours, I mean, are just
All
fucking
over the
brutal.
place.
I mean, like when we were
Yeah.
taking kids to MEPS, I had to wake up at like 3 o'clock in the morning
Oh.
to go drive and pick them up from their house and get them to New York, Fort
Oh,
Hamilton.
you go to New York for MEPS?
Yeah, so
Oh,
everyone in northern Jersey goes across the Verrazano to
oh.
Fort Hamilton, New York. So,
Fuck that.
dude, like by the time I'm getting back from dropping a kid off at MEPS to process, I'm getting to the office. It's like 7:30, 8 o'clock, and I'm like, God, like half the day should already be over. But no, man, we're recruiting all day,
Oh.
looking for people, and it's one of those things, man. Like if you got the gift, you got the gift. I'm sorry, I just in my opinion, I think you're either gonna be really good at it, and you're just gonna be born into being really good at it, or you're gonna go and you're gonna struggle and you're gonna do whatever you can to find
I
what you
mean,
need
really, you
to
got to
make
be
your mission.
be a salesman, correct? I mean, you got to have the gift of gab, and you got to be able to sell a dream to someone that's probably not going to do it. And I mean, call it what it
I
is.
mean, I used to tell you, like especially when you're making phone calls and stuff. This is when people actually had, landline telephones before like real
Yeah.
cell phones. Everyone had a freaking cell phone. How many parents picked up the phone and was like, yeah, not my kid. Yeah, I mean, this is all
See you
affluent.
later. Yeah.
This is all affluent New Jersey kids, and even some of them that were not. I mean, I've visited kids in trailer parks and stuff like that, and their parents were like, "Oh, my son or daughter's gotten a full ride, or going here, going there," and I'm like, are we on the same wavelength here? Like, or they've been accepted to community college. Um, Super awesome.
So
Yeah, so
how long were you stuck doing that?
I did that for 3 years. And I will say that honestly, like I don't know how I made it through those 3 years. That to me was honestly worse mentally and more tolling on my physical and mental health than probably going to combat. And this was all where I was still getting screwed with over weight standards. So, you know, I worked in northern New Jersey, and our executive officer decided that I needed to go do remedial PT to
Oh,
stay within standards. And our office was the headquarters was an hour south. So on the days I'm not going to MEPS, I'm driving an hour and a half at 5 o'clock in the morning to go PT with the XO and his
oh,
minions and drive back to the office and work all day. I'm like,
boo.
you can
Fuck
screw with a
that.
lot of things, but when you screw with the dude's sleep, like
Yeah, facts.
they, you know,
It's all
not a good
downhill.
situation.
I
Yeah.
find
So
I find that a lot of people that go from combat and really like it and really jive in that environment, then that go to like a B billet doing recruiting and stuff like that, they really clash. It's
let me
not
tell you, I was in the schoolhouse, and when I was in the schoolhouse with this dude, he was a staff sergeant, infantry, 0369. I mean, this dude literally had he didn't have any more space to go above his shoulder blades with his ribbons. Like the dude looked like Chesty Puller.
yeah.
And I remember him saying in the recruiting class, like, I might just see red and just lose it. Like if a kid tells me to go fuck myself, or like, no, this ain't for me or whatever. And he's like, you know what? If anything, I'll just go. I'll be a deserter. And I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever, man. And I swear to God, I look up this dude. We have the Marine Online system where you could track where people are and stuff. And I look up this dude. I'm like, I wonder how he's doing. And I look on Marine Online, and it says, swear,
AWOL.
declared, declared deserters.
Oh, he
This
wasn't
dude straight
bullshitting.
up, this dude straight up went to Canada. He was not kidding. He
He said,
literally said,
"Fuck
"This ain't
this."
for me." He said, "This ain't for me." And he had told us this when we were at the bar one night in San Diego. He said, "Yeah, my wife's from Canada. I'll just go to Canada if I can't handle this shit." And sure enough, that's exactly what he did. I'm like, man, I didn't think it was serious.
Stood on his word. That's funny.
Jesus, yeah,
I,
yeah.
you know,
Stuck by his word at least.
Yeah.
that's rough, man. That is rough when you go from that lifestyle of being in the grunts and being in combat and doing all this stuff to going and dealing with a kid who can literally just tell you to go fuck yourself.
Not only
And
that,
there's no
not
yeah,
only
yeah.
that, not only that, you create bonds with these people, and when you go from an environment that you have these great bonds, you deployed with them, to an environment when you know nobody and there's really not any camaraderie in a B billet or something like that. It's it's kind of you're on your own there. It's kill or be killed, and figuratively, obviously, but I mean, it's a tough environment, man. I went from being in the field, deploying all the time, to Quantico, and I can
Oof.
yeah, I can completely understand where you're coming from, man.
You must have
So
done a lot of this, huh?
oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. So okay,
Yeah, dude,
so
like when I got back, like, sorry, Nick,
no, go ahead.
when I got back because I left their team, because I went to the team as a combat replacement. So I went back to Pendleton. All these guys went back to wherever the hell they were from. I don't know, the Devil's Playground or some shit. But but and then I got sent to ATC, Advisor Training Cell, to be an instructor because we were on the advisory team, and I got picked for that. So it was like, like, so it was a B billet, but then I'm meeting all these other guys, like, and they'd done the damn thing, as well.
Yeah.
And you're like, all right. And luckily we all pretty well jived well. But yeah, it's not like, oh no, you're taking the speed billet, and you're like, I don't want to. Well, you're going to.
I shit you not. The day of my flight to recruiting school, I'm like, you know what? I was like, I'm just gonna miss this flight. Maybe they'll just be like, you're not gonna go after all.
Wait,
I
where's
literally
recruiting
missed
school? Where's recruiting school?
out in San Diego. So I was
Oh,
at
okay.
camp. I was at Camp Lejeune going to Camp Pendleton. So I missed the flight. Right? I'm like,
Oh, you did.
I missed the flight. I go back and I get brought to headquarters, and the sergeant major's like, Sergeant Mildorf, I don't give a fuck where you think you're going. You're going to be a fucking recruiter one way or another, whether you like it or not. He's like, so that being said, your next booked flight will be tomorrow morning
Oh.
at 0:30, and you will be there.
Yeah.
Like, well, I guess
Yep.
I ain't getting out of that shit.
Yeah. How long was
Yeah.
recruiting school?
I think 3 months, 12 weeks.
And what do they even
Um,
what do they go over? Just going
Dude,
over like
a lot of public speaking, man. Like a lot of public speaking, a lot of like, how do you sell the Marine Corps? I don't know if you remember, but the benefit tags and
yeah,
how
yeah.
we put out these tags and travel and adventure and all this shit. And then you're telling a kid like, well, you're going to be a combat cook. You'll see all that stuff like, when you're cooking the Marine Corps, and they nod and shake their head like,
It's gotta
I
be
mean,
rough.
I remember some times when I was like, especially with the reservists on a contract get exactly what jobs are available. So if these are the only jobs available and someone says, I want to be a reservist, we are given a quota that says you only have these jobs. And once these jobs are gone, that's it. And I remember a couple of folks that, there was literally, I shit you not, the only job that was left was, um, you know, food service specialist. And I'm telling my boss, I'm like, dude, there ain't no way. There,
Not doing
there,
yeah.
there ain't no way I'm going to go tell this kid this. And I'm like, you could tell him, you could figure it out. Like, oh, you can lat move and you can do other shit and blah blah blah. I'm like, hey, bro,
Oh,
I
yeah.
just don't know how I could explain this to them any other way. If you can get them to go with it, hey, amen. Um, Because being a Marine is the most important thing. It doesn't matter what job you are. You're a Marine,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, you're a Marine. Yeah, man. So did the recruiting thing for 3 years. You know, my CO on recruiting was a really good dude. He really looked out for the Marines, and like he was, you know, I don't know if you know this or not, but most recruiting station commanders are infantry grunts
Yeah, I've heard that.
because of the pressures that come with recruiting, and they know that they can handle it. Like, you got to have a specific kind of mindset to be in that position, you know, when you're talking about quota and finding, you know, the exact market. And yeah, it's not as easy as just like, hey, just walk
No,
out
it's
and find
not.
somebody. Like, no, you have to have a senior from this high school. You know, you can only, you know, enlist if you have an ASVAB score, this, that, the other. You know, and then, you know, you start talking about waivers and
There's a lot of
drugs and
standards.
tattoos.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
like holy shit. Like, or you find the golden nugget, the kid's like, I'm ready to join. They got a high ass, you know, like score, and then you find out they got caught with, like, you know, possession of an ounce of marijuana or something like that. And like, oh, they need a waiver now. um,
Yeah.
yeah, man.
No
So
bueno.
it was a rough time, especially with, you know, the fact that I was newly married, or roughly, you know, newly married, and had a newborn child. And you know, I was obviously struggling with some things outside of just that, and I didn't connect it at that time. It just, to me, was like, okay, this is recruiting duty. This has nothing to do with those bad feelings from combat, possibly TBI now that I didn't know that I had,
Yep.
and all these other things. Um, so I did that for 3 years, and then I eventually got to go back to the fleet.
Where
I made it to recruiting duty. I got promoted. I got selected as a staff sergeant while I was on recruiting duty, and then when I got to the fleet, back to the fleet, went out to Camp Pendleton,
nice.
God's country.
Finally.
Yeah,
God's
finally did the
country. Hell
station.
yeah.
So what
Las
First
Pulgas.
smart day, brother.
where they get you a staff NCO?
So I started out at 11th Marine Regiment, and I was really fortunate that the master sergeant, who was my gunny at Lejeune, ended up being my operations chief slash staff NCO over in 11th Marines. And of course, I get back from recruiting, and the first thing I want to do is I want to freaking deploy. I want to get out of here as soon as possible. So I was with headquarters for like a couple months, and then they were spooling up to go to Afghanistan, 511, so HIMARS, rocket
Yep.
artillery.
Yep.
Um, which was a match made in heaven, because I'll tell you, coming from being on recruiting for 3 years, all that mathematical shit, I didn't remember a fucking thing. So with HIMARS, you get a grid, you check that grid, and you make sure that the grid is good. You confirm the grid, and then fire
Really?
away. You know, it's GPS guided, so you know, as long as you have the grid correct, and that's essentially what the operations chief, the staff sergeant, is confirming that all that data is correct when they're inputting that into the rocket system. That's what I did as an operations chief with 511. So I was there. I think I went there in early 2012, I believe, and then deployed like probably 5-6 months later to Helmand Province, Afghanistan, patrol base of Red V in the middle of freaking nowhere.
Where was that? Do you remember?
I think it was outside of like Kajaki
Okay.
area in
Gotcha.
Afghanistan. So the way that the rockets are kind of set up is they have them strategically placed throughout Afghanistan. So like if units are calling for rocket assistance, you know, rocket fire missions, they know the distance that those rockets can reach. So our smaller rockets could reach out to like 25 miles, and then if they needed like a long range rocket, it can go like 100 miles.
Wow.
So they would have these rocket systems strategically placed so that, you know, we could you know, hit the enemy if we needed to wherever they might be.
Nice.
And that's kind of the way that artillery seemed to be going. Like, you know, the days of shooting those rockets without any kind of smart munitions
Long gone.
really has died down. I mean, the cannon artillery, they disbanded most of those units now. I think You know, I'm not with the times anymore, but I know a lot of them got disbanded. Those units went away, so there's only a couple of actual cannon artillery units that are being supported by rocket artillery. You know, wherever they're at in the U.S. as far as the Marine Corps goes.
Gotcha. Okay. So what when did you get back from Afghanistan?
So I left Afghanistan. I left for Afghanistan in I believe late 2012 or early 2013, and we were actually supposed to be there for 7 months. And in the middle of a 7 month deployment, they told us that they were shutting down the base that we were sent to. So essentially, we had to close down the base.
So does
Get
that
rid of
mean you
all
had to
the.
extend to close down?
Oh no, they actually brought us back early. So like
Oh,
we
okay.
literally loaded up all the shit. You know, accounted for all the equipment, the CMR, checked the freaking serial
Oh,
numbers on everything.
I know that was a
You
shit
know,
show.
burn everything else.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Oh, put all this crap in a hole and burn it, basically, right?
Oh man.
Yeah.
burn, burn pit legislation. Hello.
So
Um,
what was that like, man? What was I've never I can't imagine shutting down a base in Afghan. Oh, that must have been terrible.
it,
So
it was fucking terrible. Like it was terrible.
so did you have to
Um,
load everything up on like C-130s, C-117s?
we had to load everything up into quadcons and load it up onto those big ass tractor trailers
Yeah, I
and
know what you're
ship it
talking about.
all back to
Yeah.
ship
Yeah.
it all back to Camp Leatherneck. So everything had to go back to Camp Leatherneck, where like our main headquarters was,
Yep.
to account for all the equipment and stuff. Yeah, not fun at all.
So
Yeah.
Um,
Because then you get to Leatherneck and you have to recount everything again. Like, there's
well,
one, two, three, four, five, six,
you get to
seven, eight.
Leatherneck, and you're like, you motherfuckers had Pizza Hut the whole time.
oh, I know, right?
We were
Fucking
eating
Yeah.
T
right.
Rats for five
Right.
months, and you guys were eating Pizza Hut and Taco Bell.
Yep. I remember that.
Fuck,
Um,
you had T-Rats, dude. We were just straight MREs, man.
Yeah, that
Like,
shit sucks.
we were
yeah.
co-located with the Georgian troops on the patrol base we were on.
Oh, there's some
So
unique individuals, to say the least.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are.
They will just run over IEDs and just be like, we've dealt with them a few times, and they're always some big motherfuckers too.
Mhm.
I'll tell you, maybe you can sympathize with this. Is the only good times I had to look forward to was when the fucking PX truck was coming.
Right?
And, you know,
That's
by the time we got there, it was like, well, there's like one can of skull.
yeah, I know,
There's
right?
like two Maxim magazines. You're lucky if you get
Yeah.
anything else off the truck, right?
Oh, that was always a good sign.
Yeah, man. It's funny. One of the kids I recruited when I was out in Jersey, he was actually running the PX train, and like his
Oh,
MOS
no
was like
shit.
PX specialist or like MCX specialist. He's like, dude, the dude worked at the MCX as his job in the Marine Corps. I'm like,
Hell yeah.
you know what? I laugh, but that guy's probably more well equipped for a
I was
civilian job when he
I
got
was
out
just
than
gonna say
anybody
that.
else.
I bet he gets out and he gets a sweet job.
Yep,
It's a
exactly.
fact. So
Um,
I was kind of interested in talking about what you're doing now, bro. So how did you transition into what you got going on? Tell us first what you are doing and how'd you get into it?
all right, so uh, right now I actually work at Wounded Warrior Project.
Okay.
So
Nice.
my full-time job is learning and development at Wounded Warrior Project. It's kind of like doing like teammate orientations, learning development training, that kind of stuff.
So kind of just like a
Um,
staff NCO billet. Similar, somewhat.
you know what? There's a lot more to it than I thought. My
Really?
formal background in training, came from as a police officer doing firearms instruction and as a field training officer and training adults on how to do their job and really understand culture. I was honestly introduced to Wounded Warrior Project as an alumni, so I started off as a Wounded Warrior. A lot of folks don't know that if you're a veteran and you've got any kind of disability rating, if you've got any kind of presumptive condition, you deployed to Iraq or Afghanistan, and you served after 9/11, you are qualified to be an alumni at Wounded Warrior Project. I
Mhm.
I had this misunderstanding about this whole thing when I was introduced to it. I thought, yeah, I'd be missing an arm or a leg. I go by what I see and not by what I was actually privy to by people that knew about the programs. So I started off an alumni. My neighbor was a national service officer who helped out with like claims and stuff.
Okay.
And introduced me to the organization. And this was when I was a police officer. So I was already going through some rough times. I was missing that camaraderie from the military. And he's like, "Hey, let me get you enrolled." And I'm like, "Enrolled in what?" Like, he was a former Marine gunny, so he's like, "Dude, like Wounded Warrior Project, like you can be enrolled. Like you deserve the services that they offer." I'm like, "Well, what do I have to do? Send me your DD 214 and your disability letter, and I'll get you enrolled." Like, easy. And probably like a week after this was in May of 2022. Like a week after this, I get a call from a outreach specialist, and he's like, "Hey, Matt, I see you enrolled at Wounded Warrior Project. Like, you just enrolled going on a fishing trip, an offshore fishing trip on Tuesday or Thursday or something like that. Like, are you interested in coming out?" And I'm like, I got to work, man. Like, I work Monday through Friday or whatever part of the weekend I'm working because I'm a cop and that's what cops do. I can't get off of work. And he's like, "Dude, call out." he's like, how many times in your life,
bang in, man.
how many times in your life do you get to go offshore fishing for free and go catch fish with veterans? And I'm like, you got a valid point there, buddy.
Fair point.
I call out of work, right? And I go on this fishing trip offshore St. Augustine, and we catch like all these big ass
Oh, you had a good time.
mangrove snappers and trigger fish, and like I've never caught anything with a fishing pole before other than seaweed. So I'm like, this is fucking awesome, man. Right?
Nice.
So I do this outreach event, and I'm kind of at that point I'm connected, in that respect, and they start talking these different programs, and I asked this guy that works there, I'm like, "Can I just be frank with you? Like, how the hell do you get this job? Like, dude, you're fishing with veterans as your job. Like, that has to be like the coolest job ever."
Yeah, facts.
And they introduced me to this Warriors to Work program. So at this time, I'm like, I'm not completely sold on like leaving my job. I'm like, I'm making decent money.
Yep.
But this is also when I'm having these thoughts in my head, like, what's good for the money isn't good always for the soul.
I hear that.
So they connect me to the Warriors to Work program, and they get me hooked up with a specialist, and they kind of ask me like, "Hey, what are you interested in? Send us your resume. We'll kind of help you revamp your resume for what you're interested in doing." And I'm seeing all these jobs that are on their list, and I'm like, all right, that's cool. Like, we'll go to these events and stuff, and they do this Welcome to Corporate America event at the headquarters that's in Jacksonville, Florida. So it's like right down the street from where I live at already. And I go to this Welcome to Corporate America event, and they've got like Chase Bank and Deloitte and all these like big name firms, and I'm like, I'm walking up and asking what all these people are offering jobs, and I'm like, dude, I don't understand what any of these people do. but Wounded Warrior Project is there, and they have their talent acquisition folks there, and I'm like, how do I get a job with y'all?
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I'm interested in doing. Like, that is my dream.
I feel like they always keep that under wraps. They never they always try to get you a job somewhere else. But when you want to all of us really want to get a job at the Wounded Warrior, dude, because that's like, right. Come on. As you said, that's awesome. But you never really hear about how to get in there. But go ahead, keep going.
So I talked to the recruiters, and I mentioned like my background in training. I've been a police officer for 8 years. I was a Marine Corps veteran for 10 years. And at this time I had finished my bachelor's degree. I have a master's in management, and this is again, I'm a cop with a master's in management. And I'm like, this is again a look back at my life, and I'm like, what am I doing? There's something wrong here. Like, I'm not equating my education to what I'm doing with my life right now.
Right.
And I see this. like you, right? You're like, what do I have to do to get my foot in the door? Because I applied for a couple other positions, and these are outreach positions and positions where you'd be talking with veterans, and I never get a call, and I'm like, what do I have to do to get a call to get a job here? And it's really about how you connect, what you're doing in your current job or what you've done in your life to how does that connect to the current, role that you're applying for. A lot of people, they shotgun out those resumes, man. They'll send out the same resume for like 40 jobs, and they're
Yeah.
like, hey, one of those is going to stick on the wall, right? We're like playing darts. One of those is going to stick.
Yeah,
Not the
right.
case. Turns out not the case. Like I shotgun those resumes, and I was one of those guys, and they connected me with a specialist, man. They connected me with a specialist, and they said, hey Matt, like I understand you're interested in this position. How does that equate to what you've done in your life? Because I think as veterans, a lot of us downplay. We downplay what we've done, or we don't know
Yeah.
how to articulate how that connects to what we
Yeah.
we could do in the civilian world. Facts, man. I see it all the time. I see people on LinkedIn like struggling, and I look at their like qualifications, and I'm like, how is this dude not like the CEO of a company? And it's really how are you articulating how your skills match up with what the organization is looking for.
How to use
Um,
the verbiage properly.
how to use the verbiage, and how to really, not just put out a bunch of bullshit. At the end of the day, people can see through that kind of stuff,
Yeah,
right? People
definitely.
can see when you're being authentic.
Yeah.
People can
Yeah.
see when like when you're talking about something that you read on Google versus like you really
What
know what
you
you're
actually
talking about.
understand and know. Yeah.
And yeah, they connected me to this program, got me hooked up. They helped me with my resume, so I applied to be a learning and development specialist. And I will say, by no means is the process, overnight. It's a multi-tiered process. They want to really make sure that they are getting people that are going to add to the culture. Um, and I've had nothing but great experiences. As an alumni, I've had really awesome experiences at Wounded Warrior Project, and I've been there now for 7 months,
Huh.
uh, roughly since July, and the people are really world class. They say the mission gets you through the door, but the people keep you there. And that's really what I
Yeah.
feel, about the organization. They've done amazing things for me in my life and helped me even as I've been employed there with some struggles that I've had, with my military service and things I'm going through. And I don't have to lie or BS or tell people like, oh, everything's great. When you tell someone everything's great, they already know you're full of shit.
Yeah, right.
they
Mhm.
they've really taken care of me, and I'm so grateful to be in a position now where like my cup is filled. I my soul is fulfilled by what we do there and how we help veterans. um
Huh.
so yeah, that's kind of what I'm doing now.
I'm happy to hear that, man. I can see that you're not bullshitting and you're being real about that. And I think that's a struggle that we all go through when we get out. It's like, what the fuck
Yeah.
do I do now? I mean, I really feel like the Marine Corps kind of falls short on preparing you for that. And I mean, maybe that's something that we all got to just man up and get better at. But I mean, it's hard. The transition process is not easy, man. It's difficult to come from that environment to come to the civilian world because it just seems like everyone looks at you like a rake loose. They can see that you're a military guy and they know that you haven't been in the civilian world for a while. And we notice that, we feel it, and it's hard to just, I don't know, snap back in.
Well, I would say too,
Yeah.
when people try to make that transition into a role at a civilian company, and they're really just putting on the face that the company is looking for and not really being themselves.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, again, especially if you're dealing with those veterans related issues, you can only do that for so long before you're like, this
Implode.
ain't working.
Yeah.
this ain't working, man.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Um, so it sounds like you know what I'm talking about, Chris.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. No, I had a very hard time when I first got out, brother. Like, I really did. So, yeah, I definitely get that. And I had a hard time asking for the help I needed. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
I was like,
because what he said before,
fucking,
it's they don't really you don't really know what you're going through. You don't, I mean, a lot of it is you still have the mindset of just staying combat ready and staying, keeping your shit bottled down and not talking about it. You know what I mean? Like
Let me ask you
Yeah.
all something. Have you read that book by Nick? I can't say his freaking last name.
Kumalastos, excommunicated
Yeah, yeah,
warrior.
yeah.
Yes, I have.
Yeah. Yes.
What an awesome book, man. I think if every veteran was given that book, it's almost like the user guide the user guide for transition out of the Marine Corps.
Yep. So
What a book.
he was actually on the show probably 3 months ago.
Yeah.
Great dude. But yeah.
Yeah.
So what is it that you're doing with the firearms academy?
Yeah. So as a police officer, a lot of the duties and stuff that I did as a police officer was in the training space. So I was a firearms instructor with the police department I was with. Went to the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center for my firearms instruction, formal training, been to some specialty schools. And honestly, I just saw so many bad instructors out there. I mean, I saw so many of those people that put those posters at like Academy Sports saying like, get your concealed carry permit for $20 or $40.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
what are you actually learning in those
Yeah,
classes? Right.
exactly.
And then I find out that most of those classes is an instructor rattling off the Florida code on CCW that you can find on Google, and then shooting a 22 in a barrel of sand in the corner of the classroom, and they're like, "All right, here you go, CCW, bro. You're good, awesome, yeah, get your
Congrats.
certificate. Congratulations. I hope you have a lawyer on
Yeah, exactly, right.
on retainer."
Yeah.
So I went and I got my civilian certification to teach firearms through the U.S. Concealed Carry Association. So as a civilian, they're the organization that I went through to get my instructor number and stuff to be able to help folks learn about firearms and stuff. So I use some of their coursework. I train classes on their behalf when I do my Florida CCW, and then I try to do some stuff that's maybe outside of the purview of what they teach that I learned as a police officer. So like low light handgun classes, low light rifle, rifle pistol, because folks see John Wick and everyone thinks they're John Wick. So you gotta give some people, a little taste of that and see
Yeah.
like, okay,
Yeah.
there's a little bit more to that than just getting a rifle and a pistol and just going to town on 30 guys at one time.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Just freaking. Here we go.
Yeah, it takes a little bit of practice.
It's crazy. And I tell people, man, the brilliance is in the basics. I mean, I think so many people focus on like, oh, you got to learn how to do this, you got to learn how to do that. Like, in my opinion, I can teach 90% of the population the basics and just have them practice those basics and fundamentals over and over and over again to make them resilient enough to be able to take on somebody in a life or death situation.
Very, very similar to going to the gym and just getting reps in, my friend. Just doing it over and over and over and getting that practice.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, 100%. And I think, as a veteran owned small business, I think honestly, I started this as a hobby, right? And the hobby became somewhat of a secondary source of revenue and employment. And then I skirt on those lines, right? And it's like, every month you're like, man, there's a lot that goes into it. People don't see the stuff behind the scenes, when you're not on the range. They don't see you cleaning off the target stands. They don't see you, counting the bullets and,
putting
counting the beans and being an accounting, expert on where the heck did all this money go that I thought I was going to bring in this month and that kind of thing.
No, I hear you.
It's a good side passion. I really enjoy, helping people come with little to no knowledge or really bad experience and come and make it something that they're comfortable with, even if they're not necessarily someone that's going to carry a gun in their everyday life. Make them comfortable enough to where, hey, you know how to be safe with the firearm. You know how to use the fundamentals and enjoy it when you're doing it.
Gotcha.
Don't pick out the pink or purple gun just because it's pink or purple for your wife or your significant other. Like I rent out guns. I bring tons of guns to my classes. Like, try before you buy, brother. Try before you buy. It's an investment.
Guilty.
You did it, man. Cardinal sin, brother. Cardinal sin.
I
gotta send you my freaking class list in now because now you got me concerned.
Well,
you guys are not located in a firearms friendly state, are you?
No.
I'm in Colorado. Yeah. Yeah, we're good to go.
Oh, Colorado, man, you guys are good with everything. Drugs, guns, everything.
Massachusetts, not so much. Yeah.
Yeah, man.
It's
That
tough.
was for
Feel
my
your pain, man.
ex-wife. That was for my ex-wife too. So, so we're fine. We're all good there, brother. You can still hold me
In the words
accountable,
of
though.
in the words of the dudes from Indiana Jones, you chose poorly.
That I did.
Well,
That I did.
we gotta, unfortunately, gentlemen, we gotta wrap up. We're running out of time again. Matt, I want to thank you for coming on tonight. I'm happy to see that that you're getting involved with Wounded Warrior, and you got your side hustle going with the firearms joint. That's awesome. I can see that you're really happy doing that, and it's good to see someone coming from similar background of combat that went through it a little bit and brought himself
Yeah.
back up to a place where he's being successful, and I'm happy to see that, bro. But we'd love to have you on again, my friend. It was a pleasure, and thanks for coming on, brother. Good to meet you.
Hey man, I really appreciate it, and just to call out there, if there's any veterans that do need that help and support, VSOs are there for a reason. We're there to help. I'd rather somebody get the help than become one of those 17 a day.
Absolutely.
It's an epidemic. The stigma is real. So let's get together and build this tribe.
Absolutely.
It's all about the veterans at the end of the day, taking care of one another. So
100%, my friend.
Absolutely, Matt. And I want to get your contact information, man, and we can keep in touch. So
yeah, 100%, guys. I definitely love to talk with y'all again. And Chris and Nick, I appreciate your time and I appreciate your service as well, guys.
Good to go. Here we have it,
you
gentlemen.
as well, brother.
Matt Mildorf on episode 44 of the Hard to Kill podcast. Have a good night, guys. Semper Fi.
All right, you too. Semper Fi.
All right, right.
All right.